Welcome back to Online Darts, everyone. Fresh off the back of Q School and the World Championships, it is non-stop, and we are pleased from across the pond. We've got our friends from the CDC, Peter and Anthony, joining us. Gentlemen, good evening.
Phil, it's good to be with you. Thanks for having us.
Hey, Phil. Thank you for having us.
First of all, how are you both? Recovered after the Worlds in Q School?
Yeah, it took a little while, but yeah, absolutely. It was a great few weeks of darts. I'll tell you that much. Real exciting, especially on our side of the pond.
Yeah, it's been a real long year, and when it finishes up with the Worlds, it's an exciting day each and every day, and then it seems 15 or 17 days go so fast, and here we are at the beginning of January, looking at a fresh new year.
Yeah, we'll start with the Worlds first of all. We'll go in kind of chronological order of the way things happened. Results may not have gone for the CDC boys, but certainly the stock rose and the performances had people chin-wagging about darts in North America.
Yeah, to be fair, we had a conversation about this offline while I was over there. You got to be a little bit, from our perspective, a little bit disappointed in the result. There's no doubt about it. But again, the quality of competition, you hit on it, continues to just get better. And we saw that kind of bleed over, and we'll get to that in a minute, into Q School. So very happy in general with the performance, and the results will, as I said earlier, the results will continue to come. They will get there. So.
Yeah, obviously you start to get itchy as North American organizers and fans to start to see those wins build up. Let's get some players later into the tournament. But at least the foundation is starting to be there, that the performances are at a good standard. I would imagine, and it's no disrespect to anyone who's participated prior, but I would imagine these days that nobody looks at a draw that they've got a North American across from them that's not going to be an easy match anymore. Our players are really holding their own, and we just need to be patient to see that real breakthrough, and it'll come.
Oh, absolutely. You just look at it. Before the draw was done on that Monday on Sky, everyone was saying the players that you don't want to draw for the non-seeds were Matt Campbell and Danny Darby. They were the two hottest names in the non-seeded part of the draw.
Yeah, we were. Sorry, Peter.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know from our perspective, just from North America, we were very happy to see how many, like yourself, Phil, and other organizations who would always put Campbell, the Campbell Adrian match, or Danny's picture. Yeah, our players are now in the conversation about previews and big time matchups.
Took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly where I was going with that. No, that's exactly where I was going with it. So it's always good to, when they're talking about you from that perspective, it's always a positive.
Oh, completely. Look, the Matt Campbell Adrian Lewis game was on everyone's lips in round one. You had the man that went and stormed the development tour in the EU. Absolutely blitzed the Online Darts Live League against the back-to-back former world champion. That had everyone talking.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny because here's a guy, and I can look at that. We can look at that as organizers and go, we found that guy. He walked into our event in Ontario a few years ago as a qualifier. If we weren't there, would Matt Campbell be on the world stage right now? And I'm not one to toot our own horn a lot, but in this case, I'm going to toot it. I think that it proves the system works when you allow it to work.
An interesting one. Whilst we're on the Worlds, Jeff Smith, great that he went back and won the Continental Cup. However, the downside of it, did it almost do him over a little bit, because he lost his Pro Tour place in the seedings, and is that something that maybe needs adjusting a little bit? It's great that he won it, but he wouldn't have run into one of the Pro Tour players because he would have been in that pot.
These are the moments where I make Peter earn his CEO status. Go ahead, boss. Answer this one.
So I'll take this. Obviously, you're not the first person to bring this up. Shocking, I know. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. First of all, you're not playing for an insignificant chunk of change, right? And so you got a guy who's going over to the Worlds. You know, he's spent a lot of money in the past year traveling. It hasn't been easy for him. You know, you got to look at that. That's a factor too. We tend to look at it in this vacuum, like, you know, what happens if he wins, and then what happens to his qualification. But there's a lot more stuff going on there too. And let's also not forget that we got this event coming up at Madison Square Garden, and he was playing for a spot in that also. There's a lot there to unpack. It's not as cut and dry as it might seem for the people sitting on the couches going, I should never have played. You know, and candidly, we got some flack for the fact that, you know, it essentially you can view it as it took a spot away that somebody else could have gotten. And that's a valid point. But I'll respond to that by saying the man qualified for an event. He lived up to every requirement we put out there. As an organization, if we want to have any credibility, we can't change the rules midstream. I can't tell a guy he can't play because it might have an adverse effect on my organization. He's in. He's a player. I can't. It's his choice. I can't get on the phone and say, Jeff, you probably want to sit this one out. That there's no logic behind that would leave me, feeling good about myself at the end of the day.
And all credit to Jeff. Jeff came in. He had, there were opponents in front of him who could have eliminated him from the event. So it's, it was essentially almost a 15-1 ratio. Jeff was the best man on the day, and he's deservedly the Continental Cup champion.
Yeah, and he got pushed. There were some of those matches. We could have gone either way. They were on a knife set.
Just tweaking it slightly, and I 100% with you for integrity. 100% with you that he has to play and everything like that. But could the rules be tweaked slightly, like with the PDC development tour and things like that, where Bradley Brooks obviously already had a spot in the Worlds, where Jeff did, where Nathan Rafferty then would have come in? Could that a thing where Jeff wins it, he was Continental Cup, he gets everything that goes with it, his place in MSG, but then the runner-up has the spot at the Worlds and Jeff keeps his Pro Tour place?
So while that may be, from our perspective, the ideal situation, it would require the PDC, our partners, the PDC, to change their rule book. I certainly don't think that we're, in the position to start demanding changes to that. Although certainly I will mention that I did have a conversation about this topic with Matt Porter when we were over in England. So, the topic has been discussed. But as for their rules, you have to direct that question to Matt.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of it is our players, our event, but not our spot. It's a spot in another organization's event that have been gracious enough to extend the invitation to our event, but there's conditions to that, and the condition was the winner, and there's a lot to it, as Pete's laid out. The PDC also has considerations from the PDPA, and when you start to unpack what happened, it makes sense. There's other components that are going to be standing up for their players, and the PDPA being one of them. They're going to always push hard for a spot to continue to be given to the next player on the PDC order of merit.
And if somebody's going to go toe to toe with Alan Warren or Peter Manley, I don't want that someone to be me.
So from the Worlds, obviously, like you said, that the disappointment in the results, however, performance is very, very good. Q School, all eyes were on Danny Darby, and we'll touch on Danny in a minute because I've got an interesting point to put to both of you on Danny. However, Jules Van Dyken will be on the tour, and also Leonard Gates announced himself to World Darts. Obviously, we know of Leonard, we've spoken about him before, but some of the performances he put in Milton Keynes were very eye-catching, and he has announced himself as well.
Yeah,
I'll let Anthony go with that. Absolutely.
If I saw the information correctly, Baggage posted that he had the highest average of all the players entered in Q School, or the 128 maybe in that stage 2. And, no disrespect to the other 5. We had 6 North Americans total to the other 5, but honestly, to me, Gates is always a guy that I'm actually going to put in the forefront to see how he's doing. My expectation levels of Leonard Gates are extremely high. He's gone now numerous years, might even be, somewhere near, 5 years. So it's about time Leonard Gates gets that card, or, is, as you said, is announced to the world. And we see Leonard Gates on that world stage. So, again, one of those cases where the performance overall really solid, makes North America look good, but just couldn't string it together to get that tour card, or to get those points overall. I had a couple of tough games, as you can imagine. We're all up early and we're watching Dart Connect and rooting on the guys and sharing messages around, and sharing in that frustration when a big match just slips away. But Leonard Gates it's there. We know it's there. We know the stage persona is there. It's just a matter of when is it going to all come together.
He throws a 90.66 over 18 matches. I think when Danny Baggish was talking about the leaderboard, I think he was looking on the day, but I mean, 90.66 is 18th best on the Q School. Yeah. Certainly, through more solid than players that did earn their card. So you're right. It was a statement. It was a statement event for him. I'm sure he's disappointed in the result, but you got to take a lot from this, right? You got to look at this as, man, I belong. And Anthony hit on something that we talk about a lot. The stage presence with him is certainly, people, he gets his way onto the, into the PDC. People will be watching him because he's exciting.
And the other thing, just to keep it on Gates, just for a moment, to give him kudos. We talk about all the time about the process, and we want to see players go over to Q School. So, kudos for him for continuing to make that journey and to test himself and to see what unfolds. He's there every year.
And then in European one, we do have another North American on tour, and Jules Van Dyken literally at times obliterated the field in Niederhausen.
Yeah. Just mind-blowing, big time by Jules Van Dyken, a player that came across just about everybody's radar, about a year ago, playing a lot online, getting, big results, and just came through. I mean, he played solid from start to finish, as he has in the last 12 months. Every time we've seen Jules Van Dyken, he's put up a good performance.
Yeah, he's got that top gear that you really need to be successful at the top of the game. And we always talk about it's such a trite expression, but we always talk about, that guy's got another gear. He does, and as does Gates, right? That's what you need when you crack in. So we'll see. I'm really excited about him.
Obviously, disappointment for Danny Darby. Most people, including myself, really, really fancied him to go and get a card. And I mean this in the nicest way possible. Did Leonard and Danny just miss a trick by not going to Niederhausen? Because looking at the averages and everything like that, the end goal is to get a tour card. It doesn't matter how you get it, that's the end goal. And Niederhausen looked slightly easier than Milton Keynes to get that end goal.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the statement you made. I think the road was easier in Germany. I can't speak to why either of them decided to do what they did. I will say this: there is an element of truth to, if you want to play with the best, you better be able to beat the best. And the best in this group were in the UK. So not to take anything away from the European Q School, there was a lot of quality players there. Great. But I agree that the road was probably a little bit easier there.
Yeah, as Pete said, you would imagine sometimes there's behind the scenes considerations. More and more of our players these days have management, so that's a concern where management wants to see them play where their brand could be exposed the most. I don't know how things will play out this year, but if I'm not mistaken, last year the challenge tour that you were allowed to play on, if it was separated again due to COVID, was based on where you attended the Q School, right? So that's why Matt went through the German one. So if those guidelines stay true, maybe that was a consideration, that if I go to the Q School in Germany, now that's the Q School that the challenge tour that I need to attend during the year. So it could be a few factors, but obvious discussion point.
Yeah, and the 1,000-pound elephant in the room there is the COVID situation, right? I mean, we've all dealt with restrictions, but the German restrictions have been harsher than they have been in the UK, so that may have played a role in the decision as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But all being said and done, the CDC have made a huge splash again in world darts now. Let's not forget everything else that we've said before. Now that it's making a splash, you guys must be over the moon the way it's all gone, it's transpired after 2 difficult years. So now is the ultimate goal to try and get tour cards on offer for the top of your order of merit. Is that the next step and the next process, that maybe one to start with, whoever tops the CDC order of merit wins a card outright?
Well, I mean, that would be wonderful. And this is, I can recall our last conversation. This is a Phil Boris special. We haven't even proposed something like that. But I would imagine from the PDC's perspective, that now, I mean, we love it. I mean, obviously, we're not saying no. As many opportunities as we can snag for our players, the better. But what that does to the world landscape, I don't know, because you would imagine there's other parts of the world that are going to, raise their hand and say, what about us? And I know I've listened to your show tons of times, obviously, Phil, love the content, but you've talked about Q schools in different parts of the world. Do you bring the Q school system and allow North Americans to play off for, 2 cards, 4 cards, what have you, do the same in Australia and other parts of the world? So I don't know. Let's see. What does Pete have to say to that?
So obviously I'd love to see it, right? And Anthony hit the nail on the head. It's another opportunity for CDC players, just another path to the world stage. And candidly, one of the things that we discuss this internally quite often, at some level, we become a victim of our own success, right? Because our order of merit was selecting the World Cup team. Well, this year we've got 2 US and 2 Canadian tour card holders. That opportunity goes away. So how do we then replace that? And I'm certainly not upset with that. I love to see our players go, and the goal of the tour like this is to go and play with the best, right? To eventually you leave the nest, you become a true professional on the PDC circuit, and hopefully you never look back. But now it's incumbent upon us to be able to provide more opportunities so that the next generation is there, right? So that when those careers do eventually wind down, we've got that funnel. We can't let it just drop, right? There has to be somebody coming behind. And something like that card that you just mentioned, which Anthony's correct, we haven't broached that with the PDC, but something like that really does help you keep the home fires burning, if you would.
Kind of the last one on Q School, and this is again a double-edged, the victim of your own success here. Every organization, forget whether it's darts, football, rugby, tennis, or whatever, needs a poster boy, needs someone to aspire to. Now, we saw 90% of your top talent over here competing for a card, and they almost all got them. If they'd have all won and got through, did that leave you in a little bit of hole for like your poster boy? Because now, again, they'll be disappointed, but you've still got Baggish and Gates as your posters for the next year. Aspire to be these. And was that conversations you were having internally were like, we might have a problem here to sell this when all the top talent is now moved on?
Pete, I've got an answer, but go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll follow on to you. I've got one too, but I'd like to let you lead.
Well, yeah, I mean, we certainly look at that analysis, and it's where we want to be now, to a place where you lose 4 or 5 players. It puts a hit and credit to those names, because those are marquee names. The Gates and Lauby, and now Jacob Taylor has put a big name for himself. So there are going to be gaps in your headliners, but we still have just, and no disrespect to those I may not remember, but Darren Youngs and Chuck Puglios and Jim Longs and Ross Snooks. So still tons of talent. Tons of known talent, and then we've got players like Seth Stefano and Joey Lenoir, and now PJ Stewart, who just won his JDZ Advanced Tour card. So we're slowly building that process where it gets we're a little more comfortable that there's players coming in the pipeline that have the talent and the it factor to headline, to be put on the poster.
And I think that that's a great summary. To answer the root of the question, does it have an effect on the production value? I think if you're a casual darts fan, maybe. If you're a serious darts fan, no. And at the end of the day, when there's a vacuum, eventually something comes in to fill the vacuum, and that would happen here too. The next level of player certainly exists. Anthony mentioned a bunch of them. I'll throw, Gary Mawson's still throwing fire. There's plenty of people that could come up and really, take those spots. So yes, is there a little bit of an effect? Maybe, but I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Well, just to add another point, that's been the process of what we built. We always knew that that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the full roster of players and the players that haven't played CDC yet to sort of see down the road and know, okay, this is a turnover process that if I put the time in, at some point I can work my way up to the top and opportunities will arise. I need to start at the ground floor, but if the system works correctly and it's starting to really kick in the right way, those opportunities will arise for players as they move up.
Good stuff. Before we look ahead to 2022, just a quick one. Obviously, you started streaming events as well, which went down really, really well, and especially because they were on PDC TV. Early indication, numbers-wise, where you'd like them, higher than expected? How did that all go?
So, we had been streaming for a number of years. One of the big wins, we just had an all-hands staff meeting last week, and one of the things that I communicated in that meeting was that one of our biggest wins this year undoubtedly was getting on PDC TV, right? We were the first affiliate tour to have that level of trust from the PDC to be able to take that stage. So from a pure cachet perspective, it's a huge hit. Wouldn't look back. The numbers are, so here's what I'll say. The numbers are a little lower than they were when we were on Facebook, but the quality is higher, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the number of views has fallen off, but the time viewed and the quality of the interaction with the content has exploded. So we definitely got more in, I'll say it this way, we got more in increased view quality than we lost with viewers that may not have stumbled across it.
Well, that's good. After a difficult couple of years, it's all looking much, much better for the world. Pandemic not done yet, but it looks as if we're coming towards the end of it. Exciting times for the CDC. Obviously, Q School coming up, and you've got your 3 tours now in operation, which is obviously huge. Your main tour, your Evolution tour, and the junior tour with the JDC being involved as well. Exciting times running 3 tours in a year.
Absolutely. And I'll let Anthony take the lead on this, but I want to say this, Phil. Can you please let the Canadian government know that the pandemic is winding down? That would be great.
Yeah, as Pete says, we sit here ready to enter the year unified again. Canadian and U.S. players playing jointly over 4 weekends on the main tour, and this month we'll be rolling out more Evolution and Junior news. But it's still a perilous moment whether it will all unfold or not. But as we started years prior, we're ready to go with 3 levels to see players here in North America get that experience and start to see, as we touched on with, we were really proud that not only did we put on the main tour last year, but we put on junior and Evolution tour events. And we sent 2 teams to Gibraltar for the JDC Worlds and World Championships. Again, very similar to as we spoke about the players in the World Championship and the PDCQ school, the 2 teams didn't, raise the gold medal, but performances were good. We saw real breakout performances from PJ Stewart and Caden Anderson. So another sort of notch of real promise in North America as we look, over the horizon.
Yeah, that the youth, we can't underestimate, it cannot be overstated. Let me say it the right way. The importance of our youth program. We need that to continue to flourish. And Anthony alluded, we'll have some announcements coming up. But if you're out there watching this interview and you meet the criteria for the CDC, either the Junior Tour or the Evolution Tour, come out and literally come out and try it. There are so many opportunities to improve your game. You may end up in Gibraltar. You may end up in the UK, but it's got to start somewhere. And we need that. We need that for a number of reasons. Again, you're talking about the vacuum that gets created as the top end is you want to call it the Senior Tour, the Top Tour, the Champion, whatever you want to call it. As those people continue to move out of their nest, we need people to come in behind them. So we have to keep that pipeline moving.
I was going to ask, you touched on there, the importance of the hookup with Steve Brown and the JDC for your tour. And are you seeing a real uptake in youngsters coming through? Because I know North American sports always been about your NFL, your NBA, and your hockey and everything like that. Are we seeing an upturn in youngsters now playing steel tip darts in North America?
So the answer to that is not as we would hope, but I'm chalking a lot of that up to COVID. One of the things that the partnership with the JDC allows us to do is found some academies I shouldn't say found, not us running them, but working in local areas with people that have a passion and want to do some of the JDC Academy thing, to start JDC Academies. We haven't been able to do that. COVID has destroyed the ability of that. So I'm really hoping that we get to a non-COVID year, a more normal year, and we can really start that push. I know our youth director, Aaron Quinn, is really excited about that aspect of it. And so I'm really hoping that we're able to do that, because that's what you come back and ask me in a year, we have a couple of academies. The answer is going to be a resounding yes. Right now, to answer the question, I'd love to see it more than we have.
And I think a big piece of that is stories and stories take time to build. So, and you want stories that are going to inspire young players and new players. So as time goes on and we see Kiefer Durham come out of our evolution and play well in the main tour, and Jacob Womack, and now, Joey Lennar is in that evolution phase and he came out of the juniors, and as I've mentioned PJ and Caden now a few times, but as those stories increase and you give us some time, we'll be able to look back and have a main level roster of players that will have a little history with us. Well, 3-4 years from now, you may see a Continental Cup that'll include a lot of those younger player names, as I mentioned, and we'll be able to say these players over the last 5, 6, 7 years have come up through the system, and that can do nothing but inspire players to pick up the game and pick up the game in a serious way.
I know off camera we spoke about this, Peter. Some interesting names on the WDF Las Vegas event. One in particular caught everyone's eye was a sort of Dawson back playing again that broke onto the scene in the US Darts Masters, beating James Wade. Won his tour card, came over, fell out of love with the game. Obviously had other things going on with his degree and everything like that. Be a huge moment if North American darts could get Dawson back playing again as well.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, I'm actually in Las Vegas on a completely unrelated matter. The Las Vegas Open is going on as we do this interview. I haven't had a chance to get over to the tournament hall. I'm hoping at some point before the end of the day, I can go grab him and see what this is. Obviously this might just be hey, let's go to Vegas and there's darts and we can still play and earn some money and be in Vegas. It could be that, but I'm hoping that even if it is that, I'm hoping he finds that passion again. We're better here when Dawson is competing. So that's how I'll leave that.
Also, after 2 failed years, shall we say, Madison Square Garden is on the horizon. And as we sit here and do this now, that we can all look foolish in 6 or 7 weeks, but right now it's looking very good that darts will be in the Big Apple at one of the most iconic venues in the world. You guys must be excited to see the world's elite coming to the Big Apple.
Anthony lives there. I'll let him run with that.
Oh, I'm completely tickled. I'm over the moon, as Phil Taylor would like to say. It's 2 years coming. We talk about it, every year that we think it's a possibility, and what a monumental moment. And not just for darts here in North America. I think darts worldwide to get the press that professional darts are in the building at, as they call it, the world's most famous arena it cannot be overstated. what a great moment that's going to be. And I really do put out a pledge and an ask for the North American fans. Understand that this is a spectator event. This is about you showing the PDC and the world, quite honestly, what a great spectator event darts can be. You know, in the past, there's been other. It's been about you know, a playing trip when they were out in Las Vegas. This is about coming to see the Big Apple, enjoying the darts and enjoying the city. And I certainly hope it's we're gonna try our darndest to support the event and make sure it's a huge success.
Yeah, from our perspective, Anthony mentioned media. The exposure for CDC has the potential to just be amazing for this. So, you know, hopefully we'll be right up there in the mix, in the conversation. I'm sure we will. You know, it's no secret that Barry and Matt have had their eye on the U.S. market forever. It's been just the toughest nut to crack. A lot of that has to do with how we experience sport versus how, you know, Europeans experience sport. You know, the North American fan, especially the U.S. fan, we're much more passive in our the way we consume sport, and so there's a culture shock there. So we need to, as Anthony mentioned, if you're a North American darts fan, we need you there because you understand what makes good TV. And it is different for a game like darts than it is for a game like football. So get out there and be there and show your support because they need it.
In a weird way as well, the 2-year gap may have actually done the CDC a little bit of good because I look at the 8 players that you could potentially field against the PDC elite. I think it could be quite interesting.
Absolutely, Phil. I think the roster that might come together for this event might be one of the toughest, you know, World Series events that the PDC players have faced. There's the real potential for the North American side of the ledger to have some experienced and on-form players.
How far we've come from the 2006 Mohegan Sun New World Series of Darts event, right? How far we've come.
Well, I've just literally off the top of my head squiggled a few names down here. I'm not saying it will be these, by the way, but if it were to be, we've got Matt Campbell, Jeff Smith, Jules Van Dyken, Leonard Gates, Danny Baggish, Danny Lauby, Chuck Pulio, just names that have literally just come off the top of my head like that. And that's without even thinking that, I'm not saying they all get in, but even if a handful of them are on the roster, that spells danger for some top players.
Certainly, and that's what that PDC experience, you know, and big stage experience will do. You could put in Darren Young and Gary Mawson and Jim Long, and that, you know, all these players that in the last 4 years that have experienced that PDC stage. That, as we know, that's the more you go through that process, the more comfortable you are, and that's what we've seen, you know, to an extreme in the last 12 to 24 months. And you're right, those players are going to get up there, and it's going to be a very familiar spot to them. And even the players across the way, they're not going to be foreign faces that they haven't competed against, you know?
If you were to go back, you know, 5 years, beginning of the CDC, right? And you told us you got to have 8 players play the world's best. And you could look at 1 or 2 and be like, all right, you know, we've got the chance to maybe pull a couple upsets here. But Anthony's right. You know, we're at the point now where you're looking at people who, you know, aren't on the stage because there are only 8 spots, going, well, this person could have given them a run for their money. This person, like, there's legitimate contenders against the world's best that extend well beyond 8 spots here. And that's just a realization of really, again, the system works and the dream coming true of what we were planning, you know, when we started this in 2014.
I know we've talked about it a lot, but just talking about it like we are there, I'd love to see a Mosconi Cup, Ryder Cup concept in darts. I genuinely would. And I think it's something that most world fans could get behind.
I'll say that I can say with almost certainty that Anthony Eugeniaon probably has that drawn up in his little notebook. So
to be fair, we did the other day, literally we had the captains, the 4 automatics, the wild card picks. We even worked it out on a Ryder Cup format that on the Friday you play pairs, mixed pairs, triples, mix it around on the Saturday, and on the Sunday it's your 12 singles. However, this is the important bit. It's a stumbling block, but broadcasters do not get a say in where the players go. It is a captain's pick.
Yes.
Where they put the players, like in the Ryder Cup, because we all know how broadcasting works. They want the best players in the prime time spots, which I get. But it's important that it have to be captain's pick, that we're going with this order.
That's the full drama of it. I love nothing more than doing just as you laid out. Just take those names and play around with potential matchups and what kind of an event you could create. And as Pete said, the notebook is always chock full of 2 or 3, potential events that are just waiting for the go ahead, waiting for the big check to come through and say, it's a go, lads. Let's do it. And we could put on events like that in numerous ways between the U.S. and Canada, the U.S. CDC and the other affiliate tours, and as I'm sure as you've got laid out a sort of UK or PDC versus the world or North America. So many good things we can do. Let's go sponsors. Let's put up the money and we can bring all this great content to you.
One of the best parts of my job is being able to have these 2-hour meetings with Anthony, once a week or so. We have, the idea factory just keeps churning. One of the toughest parts of my job is saying, I love that idea. I'm on it, but we don't have the resources to do it, but I know they're there. And at this point, and he fleshes them out, and, we can take it out of blow the dust off the idea.
That's it.
And it's ready to go. So yeah, we have plenty of ideas that haven't seen the light of day yet.
Gents, it's an absolute pleasure sitting down talking darts with you guys. It really is.
Likewise, Phil. Sorry, Anthony. There's one more thing that I want to get out because it's something you're going to see us talk about more and more, and that is what we're planning on doing other parts of the world. Our next initiative is going to be Central and South America. It's not going to be anything like the amount of effort and the amount of publicity you see here. There just isn't the budget for it. But you talk about how people experience sport. Central Americans, South Americans, it's so almost identical to the way Europeans do it. And there's so much potential if you can find the talent to support it. And so we're really excited about that. Our partner, Jeff Good, down there in Costa Rica, really excited about some of the things that you might see coming out of here. And I'm just going to tease it in the next year or two.
Gents, absolute pleasure. Always welcome at Online Darts. And thank you very much for your time, as always, guys.
Thanks, Phil. It's a pleasure. We love talking the game. We truly love it. And it was a real honor for me to be behind a microphone as we broke ground in Tampa to be on PDC TV. And it's always an honor to sit with you. And we appreciate the support of all the fans in the UK and around Europe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Phil. Truly appreciate it and hope to talk to you very soon.